In the scorching emptiness of the desert, a small child wanders alone, quietly sucking on a severed human finger like it's a piece of candy. At the same time, a man named Wyndham drives deep into the desert, searching for the perfect vantage point to photograph an approaching solar eclipse. He climbs high, waits for hours, and finally captures breathtaking shots of the sun crossing into darkness. As he heads back to his car, he notices something. A young boy, crying beneath the thin shade of a lone tree. Wyndham approaches carefully. The boy says he's lost. His parents gone. Heartbroken for him, Wyndham offers help. But when he lifts the boy, his hand comes away coated in filth, thick and disturbing. The boy begins walking deeper into the desert, ignoring Wyndham's suggestion to return to the car. Eventually Wyndham follows him, trying to make conversation. The boy remains silent. Hours pass. The sun grows merciless. The boy asks for a drink, and Wyndham shares his water. But when Wyndham suggests turning back, the child suddenly shoves him to the ground and runs. From a distance, the boy stops and smirks. Wyndham's water spills into the sand. He is now completely lost. As night arrives, Wyndham tries to sleep beside a rock formation, but strange whispers echo through the darkness. Following the sound, he discovers bizarre objects, bottles hanging from branches, and the voice of a woman singing deep within a canyon. Below, there is a house built inside the rock. Wyndham climbs down a wooden ladder and knocks, but the door swings open without an answer. Inside he meets Alina, a quiet woman cooking a simple meal. She offers him water and a place to stay, but gives almost no explanation about the strange life she lives here. The next morning, Wyndham wakes to find the ladder gone. He is trapped. He searches the canyon and notices unsettling details. Hand-painted symbols, cages, and skulls arranged intentionally. When he asks Alina how to get out, she simply says, "Sometimes the ladder returns. Sometimes it doesn't." Desperate, he tries climbing the canyon walls, but they are too steep. Calling for help yields only distant echoes. That night, strange voices drift from above. Wyndham climbs again, using a hammer he found in the house as support. But halfway up, a pig's head is thrown at him from above. He slips and falls. The hammer pierces his leg. Alina removes it, and Wyndham slips into days of feverish hallucination. He thinks he sees children inside the home, watching him. When he recovers, he limps permanently. The voices above reveal themselves, a group of feral boys, living on the canyon's rim. Wyndham begs them for help. They agree, but only after he answers a bizarre question. "What is your favorite color?" Confused, Wyndham answers red. Hours later, the boys return and lower a rope. Wyndham ties himself in, unaware that the correct answer was actually blue. They pull him halfway up, then stop. The boys taunt him. One urinates on him. They sway the rope. Wyndham screams for Alina. Finally, she steps outside and shouts at the boys in a strange language. They drop the rope. Wyndham crashes against the rock and blacks out. When he wakes, Alina explains. The boys are strays brought together by the desert. And Wyndham now belongs here too. Over time, Wyndham is forced into a routine, living, farming, drinking when allowed. He notices Alina owns many men's clothes, in many sizes. All from previous men. The boys brought goods for Alina, ranging from chocolates to alcohol. Wyndham could not help but express his surprise upon seeing the range of products. He wondered where they had gotten the goods from, but Alina believed it was better not to ask and simply enjoy what they were provided with. Wyndham assumed that Alina too was once a victim, and she had eventually accepted her fate and lived at the mercy of the boys. Wyndham had managed to somewhat hide his frustration for quite some time, but after getting drunk that night, he was once again agitated. He could not believe that both he and Alina were being held hostage by violent, obscene children. It baffled him to think that even after everything Alina had been through, she was still not ready to support him and find a way to escape from the place. Wyndham was too drunk to think about the consequences of his actions, and he ended up sleeping with Alina that night, not realizing that his one action would shorten his lifeline. There was a portrait of an old woman at Alina's house, and when Wyndham asked her about it, she replied that the woman in the photograph was the first mother, suggesting that she was the one who started the cult. The next morning, after stepping out of the tin house, Wyndham noticed a young boy named Lipa staring at him. Unlike the rest of the rowdy children, Lepus seemed more collected and was genuinely interested in learning more about the world from Wyndham. Given the kind of products the kids brought to Alina, it was obvious that they had access to other human beings, and Wyndham assumed that if he could convince Lepus to help him, maybe he could leave the place. When he met Lepus again, he encouraged the young boy to leave the desert and see the world. Lepus called the place Palace, and he believed he would not be allowed to leave. It was evident that something was controlling the villagers, but Wyndham had yet to figure out what it was. Wyndham promised Lepus to take him along if he could help him escape. Lepus also asked if Alina could come along with them, and Stone promised that the three of them would be a family once they made it out of the desert. Alina overheard the entire conversation, and she was visibly saddened by Lepus' response. Lepus ultimately decided to help the stranger, but it seemed Arvo, a rude young boy, had overheard their conversation, and it ended up costing Lepus his life. Alina was traumatized when she found his body. She screamed out of frustration and repeated that brothers were not meant to behave this way. It was evident that Lepus was her son, and she blamed Stone for the death of her child. Alina was not the helpless victim that the hiker assumed her to be. Everything that Wyndham encountered was planned way ahead, and he was not the first man to go through the haunting experience. After Lepus was killed, Alina decided it was time for Wyndham to be locked in the cage. Even after providing him with food and clothing, he refused to give up on his escape plans, and that was reason enough for Alina to choose the cage as a last resort. So, why was Wyndham lured to Alina's house? The answer is simple: Alina needed him to reproduce. Wyndham's seed was all that the mother needed, and it was very clear from the beginning that she did not expect Wyndham to take on any responsibilities as the father. It was only after he was put in a cage that Wyndham realized what Alina's plan had been all along. Wyndham was offered a meal in his cage, and as time passed, he started to lose his sanity. He felt hopeful when he noticed a hiker close to the pit, and he begged her to help. The woman was willing to help Wyndham, but Alina's devilish brother found her, and they did not hesitate to kill her. Wyndham lost all hope, and he simply wept and screamed in pain. A folk ceremony towards the end of the seeding suggested the significance of motherhood within the family. They celebrated Alina's motherhood and fed on her milk to feel closer to nature. Later, when Alina offered Wyndham a blanket, he begged her to accept him back into her life. By then, he had already realized that Alina was the decisive figure in the family, and if he could win her over, he could have a chance at life. But Alina never intended to protect Wyndham. All she needed from him was his seed, and since the child was already conceived, he was of no use to her anymore. The only reason she had not killed him yet was because she was waiting for the birth of their child. Even if Wyndham had been supportive, she would have had to kill him anyway. He was not of the same blood, and therefore he did not have a place in the cult. Wyndham never really had a choice. Alina had decided his destiny the minute Orion had come across him in the desert. It was during the blue moon that Alina experienced contractions. The labor pain was unbearable, and the only person who could help her was Wyndham. She walked out of the house and unlocked the cage. She begged him to help her, and Wyndham briefly considered helping her give birth to their child, but then he was lured by the ladder. The ladder that he used to get down to Alina's house was there right before his eyes, and he could not help but walk towards it. On one hand, there was a slim chance of freedom, and on the other, there was a woman pregnant with his child who had tricked him and taken away all his joy. Wyndham left Alina and walked towards the ladder, but upon hearing the sound of his daughter's first cry, he gravitated towards Alina. Even though he was held against his will, Wyndham's primal instinct to look back was a nod to his desire to start a family. But if Wyndham was allowed to live, he perhaps would have always searched for ways to get out of the palace with his daughter. He did not love Alina, and he was not born into the cult, therefore, his loyalty would always remain questionable. In the seeding's ending, Alina held her daughter in her arms and stated that one day she would become the mother. Giving birth to a girl was crucial for the cult to survive. The women ruled because they were blessed with the power of reproduction. Alina gave birth to her daughter during the solar eclipse. The darkness when their daughter was born suggests the evil that would continue to dominate since the birth of the daughter came with the promise of another generation. The seeding ended with the death of Wyndham. He was killed after he served his purpose, and his body continued to rot outside Alina's house. Thanks for watching Cine Recap Studio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story. Until next time.